Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gift of Health Weekly Wellness Chat. I am Dr. Arjun Rayapudi, and this is lovely my this is my lovely wife, Dr. Shobha Rayapudi. We are both co-founders of Gift of Health. At Gift of Health, we are helping people to transform their lives with lifestyle medicine. People are learning to lose weight, end the frustrating cycle of dieting, and prevent and reverse chronic conditions, have more energy, simply by using the power of food and lifestyle medicine. Every week through Gift of Health Weekly Wellness Chat, we are bringing you the experts in different fields of medicine. And today we have a very special guest.
Yes, and we are so excited to introduce our special guest, Dr. Zahra Kassam. So, as some of you may know her, like she's a radiation oncologist at the Stronach Regional Cancer Centre in Ontario, and she's also an assistant professor in the Department of Radiation Oncology at the University of Toronto. So Zahra specializes in the treatment of breast and cancer and gastrointestinal malignancies. And we are so glad, I think we got certified at the same year. Like she's a certified lifestyle medicine physician from Canada, and she's certified with the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine. And she counsels her patients on dietary and lifestyle interventions to optimize outcomes after a cancer diagnosis. So she also co-founded Plantbased Canada, which is a not-for-profit organization with a mission to promote plant-based whole food nutrition that is healthy and sustainable. And I love this, which supports the well-being of the planet and all its inhabitants. And it's so true. And one more interesting thing is Zahra, she's the co-author of the new upcoming book. It's called Eating Plant-Based, Eating Plant-Based, Scientific Answers to Your Nutrition Questions, and which is coming out next year. So be on the lookout. She's actually co-authoring this book with another beautiful human being, Shireen, and we hope to get her too in this wellness chats. And it's amazing, like what both of the sisters are doing.
Yes, one thing that is quite amazing is Dr. Zahra Kassam and Shireen Kassam. They're both oncologists, like cancer specialists. And Zahra, it's so good to have you on Gift of Health Weekly Wellness Chat. We are so excited to be with you, and I'm sure like all our Gift of Health community and family, they are looking forward to meeting you and learning from you.
Thank you so much for that very lovely introduction, and I'm so honored to be with you today. Thank you for inviting me, and I just love everything you do, and you're making such an impact, and it's so wonderful. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And for all our listeners and viewers, share this widely, invite your friends and family members. We're going to be discussing and delving into what is the connection between the lifestyle and cancer, and how can we not only prevent, but also use lifestyle measures to improve the outcomes even after the cancer has been diagnosed. So, share it with your friends and family members, and let us know also, we always love to know where you're joining us from. And we have people joining in these conversations from all over different parts of the world.
Wow.
Yes. And it's quite interesting. So Zahra, you're not like a typical radiation oncologist. So usually I know.
Yeah, usually the radiation oncologist means okay, you have a cancer and you need this many number of treatments, and this is a schedule you're going to follow. So people are on a regimen, okay. But you're okay, you know what? You have cancer. We're going to do the radiation thing, whatever you need. But you also, talk to them about, what to eat and, their lifestyle. So how did you stumble upon this this lifestyle approach when this is not something that is taught in our residency training, our medical school, right? Like, because we are conventionally trained to just use either radiation or surgery or medications, but you are something unique. So
I'm not unique because you guys are doing it all. I'm following you. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We all trained in the same way, and we had no significant nutrition training at all. Nothing really. Yeah, we all trained in the same way, and no significant nutrition training. Oh, there's a bit of an echo.
So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Zahra.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So how is it now?
Yeah.
That sounds better, I think.
Sounds better. Okay, good. Yeah.
So, and for many years, I didn't have any idea about the benefits of plant-based nutrition for health, for planetary health, individual health, or anything else. And it really was my journey into the ethical side that took me into the health side. So I've been vegetarian for many years, and in around 2013, I realized that didn't really fit with my ethics to continue eating other animal products like dairy and eggs. And it was through exploring that and educating myself on that I just came across this massive body of evidence that you guys know the benefits of plant-based nutrition. And that took me into this area of plant-based nutrition. And then my sister Shireen, my sister Layla, we were all exploring this at the same time. And Shireen, my sister in the UK, who's founder and director of Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, had formed her organization, did her conference in 2018, her first conference. And I flew from here to England for a long weekend, just to support her, because it was so important. I felt it was so important to support her in that important work she was doing. And it was such a pivotal event for me. I just was blown away by the enthusiasm of the people there. People were so happy to come together with other like-minded people to find that when in our conventional lives we're not finding that. And I said to Shireen, we don't really have that I know about in Canada. Help me do a conference in Canada as well. And through that, I found you, I found Maria, Theodora, and all the other lifestyle medicine people, and you guys came over for our first conference, and your talk was just so wonderful, and everybody loved it. And to this day, when I mention my conference, they talk about you. Kiss the cabbage. What about the hat? This week, literally, someone said that to me. And through that, I met you guys, and Maria Theodora, who really is one of the early adopters of lifestyle medicine, said, Zahra, why don't you think about doing more in lifestyle medicine, take the exam? And so 2019, we all sat the certification together. And I remember I have this picture in my head so vividly. I look over to my right and Shobha is there, just sitting there meditating, and all my stress just went down like this. Just by looking at you. That is my deep memory. It's like a photocopy in my head, a photograph of that. And yeah, and then we're learning all the time, and there's evidence coming out all the time. Every week there's new evidence coming out supporting what we're teaching.
Amazing. Yeah, like Michelle Fidel, like she's a dietitian, right? Like she says that she's so glad to have you on the show. And Heather is joining us from Calgary. Bonnie saying thank you for inviting Dr. Kassam, and Connie is saying hello from Jamaica.
Oh my gosh! And big shout out to Michelle, the co-founder with me of Plant-Based Canada. I would not be doing this without her. She's awesome and amazing. You should invite her on to talk about nutrition during people's cancer journey, during their treatment.
We'd love to.
We'd love to have her.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Zahra, like I know when people hear about the word cancer, and we see so commonly in people, But like, how prevalent is cancer? Like in Canada, like how many people are
the burden of cancer in
Yeah.
Canada, the incidence, and one other thing that many of us are interested in, that the more cancers happening in the recent days in the younger population.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely. And you must see that as a surgeon and
Yes.
working in that area too. So it's a huge burden. It's a burden in every way. And globally, anybody born after 1960, their risk of getting cancer in their lifetime is 1 in 2 to 3. And in Canada, it's 1 in 2 people in their lifetime will experience a cancer diagnosis personally themselves. And unfortunately, cancer in Canada is the first cause of death in Canadians. Worldwide, it's probably heart disease. But now in certain countries, including Canada, cancer has overtaken that to become our #1 cause of death and a significant cause of premature death. And 1 in 4 people will pass away of cancer, a cancer diagnosis. And Arjun, as you've mentioned, there are certain cancers, specifically the colorectal cancers, that are increasing in incidence recently. Every year, 1% a year going up, which is, I'm sure, totally driven by our lifestyle. And, you see it and I see it. I see it every week. I see young people diagnosed with cancer in the prime of their life with young kids. It's terrible. The good news is, though, that we can help this by educating people that lifestyle factors can reduce their risk of getting cancer, and if they have a diagnosis, can reduce their risk of cancer coming back and improve their outcomes. So there is a lot we can do.
That's so well said, Zahra. So, like, what causes cancer? Like, is it genetic or something else? So
there are so many people are like the first thing that when many people are diagnosed with cancer is a shock. It's not only the shock to themselves, but it's also shock to the family members. And one of the first question that comes up is like, why did I get it? Is it something genetic? So we want to hear your like the research on that, and like your experience. What percentage of cancers do you think are genetic, and then what does genes have to do with anything with the cancer, or like is it mostly lifestyle?
So it's estimated that only 5 to 10% of all cancers are due to the genes that we are born with, the genes that we inherit from our family. And the other 90% is environmental, and it is estimated by the major organizations that 40 to 50% of all cancers are preventable through modifiable lifestyle factors. That's huge. And
it's huge. That means, like, we are saying that every other person who's being diagnosed with cancer, it's potentially preventable.
Right.
But that the common belief that many people harbor is it's in the genes, and like, my parents had it, or my grandmother had it, and so it's in the family. But even then, it's in the when it is running in the family, most of the time when we do the research, like we don't see a whole lot of genetic link there. It's most of the time it's also the recipes run in the family and the habits run in the family.
Right.
Like, so only, as you said, the very small, like 5 to 10% of the cancers are genetic, and that is actually empowering and liberating to know, right? Like, so, because if it is genes and the fate of genes, then most of the times we say, oh, it's like destiny and there's not much I can do. But what you're sharing is that, hey, you know what?
Yeah, it is liberating, as you said.
It is.
Yeah. So if it's lifestyle, so what factors increase the risk, or what factors decrease the risk of having cancer?
So that's a great question. And we know that there are several mechanisms which are implicated in cancer development. And these mechanisms are interrelated, and they're also shared with the cause and mechanisms that cause other chronic diseases. And lifestyle and nutrition can affect each one of these. And so, your audience, who will know this from you anyway, will understand how they affect them. So for example, inflammation, that's the simple answer. Inflammation is very much central. The presence of oxidative stress, whether that's from, increased activity in your body, or you're taking in external carcinogens, or smoking, or alcohol that create these reactive oxygen species and cause oxidative stress. We've got dysregulation of hormones. So people who have a more meat-based diet will have higher estrogen levels, higher levels of insulin like growth factor. And so this contributes to different types of cancers. We have the microbiome, and we can't not talk about the microbiome. That's just so fascinating. And over the last decade, we've really understood that the microbiome is intimately related to good health or disease. And we're getting to understand what represents a good microbiome. We know that food and physical activity and other things, they affect our microbiome in the good direction or the bad direction, and they impact our immune system and thereby cancer development. And even more fascinating is that the microbiome has recently been implicated in how we respond to cancer treatments, and may even, by having a good microbiome, improve your survival. I mean, this is like an area of new research, and it's just fascinating. So, we've got inflammation, oxidative stress, the microbiome. That there are several mechanisms, of which now I can't remember all of them, but there are several.
Yeah, we could just talk about the mechanisms, right? But the bottom line is it's our what we are doing with our hands and feet, and what we're putting into our mouth, like the food. It's and some people can't believe that eating meat actually increases the risk of cancer.
Yes.
And I see people almost on a weekly basis. I mean, there is not a single week goes by where I have to give people a diagnosis. Hey, you have breast cancer and you have colon cancer. These are the two common areas that I see. And I arrange for the conventional treatment, like surgery, and depending upon the staging, some of them may go for chemotherapy and then radiation and all. But I also sit down and talk with them. Hey, along with this, what can we do to prevent the recurrence of it, and also to improve the outcome? And when I start talking about it and share that eating dairy products and meats, it increases the risk of cancer, for many people it's a surprise. And you have already elaborated some of the mechanisms, like you mentioned that eating meat that causes dysregulation of the hormones, raising estrogen, and eating meat increases the IGF-1 level, which is like insulin-like growth factor, which is a tumor growth promoter, right? So it is still like, despite the scientific evidence is there, somewhere we feel like it's not getting in, the enough message is not getting out to the mainstream, to the mass number of people, that many people just are sitting with bacon for breakfast, or like a chicken for lunch, and maybe pork chops for supper, not thinking that these are potentially increase the risk of getting cancers.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and like this is the environment we are surrounded with too. Yeah,
and you're right. There've been a couple of surveys, one in the US, one in the UK, and they've surveyed the population to ask, do you know that red meat and processed meat cause cancer? And there's a huge percentage of the population that have no idea that meat causes cancer, or physical activity reduces the risk of cancer, or being overweight increases the risk of cancer. So, about 50% of people, I think it was, in those surveys had no idea about that. And we're obviously not doing a good job, and we're not putting our efforts and our money into prevention. You know, we're putting it at the other end, spending lots of money at the other end, but wouldn't it be better if we just prevented it in the first place?
So well said. But let's say now we become aware that like these are the factors that can cause cancer. So is it too late to change? Because like all this while, if I have been eating meat or dairy products, so is it too late to change or prevent cancer?
It's never too late, never too late. You know, if you're talking about alcohol, which we know can cause certain types of cancer, 7 different types of cancers, again, like smoking, the longer you haven't drunk alcohol, the lower your risk becomes related to that. Physical activity, never too late, never too late. Even in people who have certain genetic signatures that put them at risk, higher risk of getting cancers, they benefit from physical activity, lowers their risk of getting cancer, perhaps even more so than people who don't have those genetic signatures. We know that, you know, by altering our eating, we change the microbiome in a matter of, you know, weeks, 2-3 weeks. We can change the composition of our microbiome and how it interacts with our immune system. You know, even if we just talk about, you know, stress, I mean, how does stress impact us? Stress impacts us immediately. Lack of sleep affects us immediately. So, you know, we know that it's never too late. And we also have fascinating studies. For example, we can't ever have a cancer talk without talking about Dean Ornish's study, where he looked at patients with prostate cancer. And he showed that in patients with early prostate cancer, by doing lifestyle measures, such as, you know, a healthy plant-based diet, stress management, physical activity, you can actually, you know, lower your PSA, which is a marker of the activity of prostate cancer. So at 1 year, those people who had that good, healthy lifestyle lowered their PSA. They were much less likely to need radiation or surgery. So even for people who have a diagnosis, it's never too late. And then what he also did, he took prostate biopsies from a few patients, and he looked at it before the intervention, and he looked at the prostate biopsies at 3 months, as well as, so in those prostate biopsies, there were about 500 genes that had changed the function. So you can switch on and off genes by your healthy lifestyle, and that was apparent at the biopsies at 3 months. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because that's incredible. That tells you it's never too late. And he also, you know, he looked at telomerase activities in the peripheral blood cells and found that you increased telomerase activity just by changing your diet. So you extended, you know, your telomeres, the caps at the ends of our genes to protect them, which is, you know, anti-aging and all this other stuff. So it's never too late, and you can see the short period of time in which changes can become really apparent. And that's empowering, Arjun, as you've already said, that's empowering. And people want to know. People are so, you must find this as well, when people come to me in the clinic, they want to know what they can do. And they've already even thought about it. They're coming with the questions, and it's such a teachable moment to be able to give them that information. And not only that, but you see, you know, when you talk to people, they're so stressed when they come and see you. You start talking about these things and they get excited too, and their stress levels come down. You see them interacting better with you, and they take that information away with them.
That is so true. Like, we have a question from one of our viewers saying is, what's the best time to change? Like, how early can I adopt this plant-based lifestyle, or make changes in this lifestyle factors?
Today, of course, today. Yes. And, you know, when we're talking about how early in life, we want to do it from the beginning. We know that, you know, the major dietetic organizations tell us that a healthy, well-planned, vegan, vegetarian, plant-based diet is good for all stages of life. And we know that, our childhood obesity rates are increasing. We know that we can see, you know, signs of fatty streaks in the arteries really young, in the fetuses of mothers who have high cholesterol. We can see, you know, atherosclerotic changes in young people. Diabetes is increasing. And so it's so important to start as early as you can with your kids. And your son, my children, we're bringing them up to be plant-based and trying to do our best for them, set them up for a good life. So never too late to change.
Yes, like the best time, I would say, like even when you're ready to give birth to a newborn. So like pregnancy, it's the best time. Like
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a Chinese proverb, right? Like the best time to plant trees was 20 years ago, and the next best time is now.
Yeah.
Right?
Wonderful.
Yeah, same thing. Like the best time to adopt this plant-based diet is like 10, 20 years ago, and the next best time is now.
I love it.
Yeah. So Steve is asking, like Steve Sharma, he's asking, why do younger people get so much cancer?
So we don't really know, but we all believe that it's our lifestyle. We are unfortunately in the midst of a pandemic of chronic disease. And we also know that chronic disease increases your risk of getting cancer. It also increases your risk of dying from cancer. So if we as a community, and really, it's just in the last generation, we've really changed. Our obesity rates in Canada have become more than 50% now, based on the latest statistics. How can 50% of our population be overweight? We are eating way more meat and dairy than we used to. We didn't used to do that 50 years ago. So all of these factors play into it. So that's my reading, that we're just not living as well as we should. We're stressed, we don't sleep well. And I think that, life today is very different to what it was 50 years ago. Not that it wasn't hard then, life is always hard in different ways, but we definitely have adopted bad habits and we have normalized them. We say it's normal, we don't even realize that they're abnormal, that they're harming us, harming the planet. It's not sustainable for the planet either, and that's going to impact us. It's already impacting us in the events around the world.
Yeah, like you mentioned, like there is so much childhood obesity. So does obesity play, or does it have any risk factor for developing cancer?
Absolutely. So unfortunately, being overweight does increase your risk of 13 different types of cancers, including our more common ones like breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, and then some of our other harder to treat ones, esophageal cancer, pancreatic cancer. So 13 different types of cancer are increased, and the same ones are actually increased for people who are not physically active as well.
Zahra, this is very, very important stuff, like life-changing stuff. Once you know this information and you start to adopt for yourself and your family members, you could bring about so much change, not just prevention of cancer. Like one thought that came with when you're answering that question, like why do younger people are getting more cancer? I have, you're seeing that in your practice, and we are seeing that in our practice as well. But I have a lot of cardiologist friends, and they're seeing so much heart disease in 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, which what they used to saw 15, 20 years ago, the heart conditions, 50, 60-year-olds, they're seeing that in 35, 40-year-olds. So it's not only the cancers that are more common in the younger people, but also the heart disease and the diabetes. Many people don't realize that having these chronic diseases itself is a risk factor for people. We have, as a society, as a culture, we have almost accepted these, having diabetes, having high blood pressure, having high cholesterol, or even having heart disease. This is all like common, simple things. Right?
Yeah,
and then,
normal consequence of aging, but it's not.
Yeah. So that's so this is so relevant and so important. So to our viewers, we hope you're finding this useful. And if you have any questions, just type it in the chat, the comments on the Gift of Health page. Bonnie is saying, I'm a breast cancer survivor, thriver, from South Lake, and she follows a whole food plant-based diet and does regular exercise. What independent role does overweight and overall fat intake from nuts and seeds? Because she's plant-based, she wants to know, right? Does it nuts and seeds have any risk of, does she have to worry about risk of recurrence with when she's doing these measures and eating nuts and seeds?
No. So Bonnie is absolutely right that the studies have shown that saturated fat really do have an impact on survival after a breast cancer diagnosis. But that's what we call the bad fat from the animal products. The studies on nuts have consistently shown benefit in many different things, in reducing heart disease. So these are good fats. They're good fats. They have good things that we need, and they're also they come packaged with all the other good stuff, not devoid of everything else like meat is. So do eat your nuts. The only caveat to that, of course, is if you are battling being overweight, if you're like me, you just have to look at a donut and you put on weight, then, making sure that you don't have too many nuts. You really want just what.
Yeah, for the record, donut is not a nut.
Yes, that's not included. I'm sure Bonnie knows that.
Yeah. Oh, I love nuts. Donuts. Yeah. So actually, thanks for clarifying that. Like, nuts and seeds overall, these things decrease the risk of getting cancers and also decrease the risk of recurrence. But you really touched upon that important point. Like, there are some of us who are addicted to nuts. Like, if you just start eating, one or two cashews or one or two almonds or pecans, you just can't stop. So if you are someone like who have those tendencies, it's better to avoid these. Or if you could just use them sparingly in your dishes, it's all fine. Like, and seeds are, I would say, even better than the nuts because they are less addicting. The flax seeds and chia seeds and the pumpkin seeds and so many seeds, like these are so nutritious and beneficial. And these are, even though they have some saturated fat, as you mentioned, these are packaged, right? Like with fiber, phytochemicals and antioxidants. It's zinc and many vitamins and minerals. Amazing.
So we have another question from Beverly. She says, I know Dr. Kassam specializes in breast and gastrointestinal cancer. However, I have a question regarding thyroid papillary cancer. So my mother passed away this past May with this aggressive form of cancer. The only form of treatment they gave was radioactive iodine, but it didn't work. Is it hereditary, or what are the risk factors? What can I do to prevent it?
It's not a common cancer. Generally, papillary carcinomas of the thyroid are generally more well behaved, and the treatments are surgery and radioactive iodine. Sometimes radiation, external beam radiation, is used as well. That does seem to be increasing in some age groups as well. I don't really know why. So I would say it's exactly the same advice as I give for anybody with the diagnosis of cancer, that you follow the same guidelines. And maybe this is a good time to talk about the guidelines we have. Beverly, being on this, will already know about plant-based nutrition, but the guidelines do say, have a diet that's rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans and legumes, because these are the foods that have been shown to reduce cancer risk. So I'm sure Bonnie probably is following, Beverly, I beg your pardon, is following that already. And we must mention soy later in that bean category. But, keeping your ideal body weight is one of the other recommendations. These are from the World Cancer Research Fund and the American Institute of Cancer Research, which is the really robust guidelines for cancer prevention. Keep an ideal body weight, keep physically active. 150 minutes minimum of moderate to intense activity a week. So I tell my patients to do 30 to 50 minutes of walking every day, briskly, get your heart rate up. It's the aerobic component that's really important. Muscle strengthening does have a part to play as well, so that will help too. So really important to do that. Keep away from processed meat, because that's a class 1 cancer causing agent. It's been linked to breast cancer, and other bowel cancer primarily, but also breast cancer and other types of cancers. I don't think it's related to thyroid cancer. I haven't seen any literature on that. Reduce your processed food. Processed food, it's important to reduce that. Sugary beverages, not to have that. That's in the guidelines as well. So these are the things to really do. Just because your mother had thyroid cancer does not mean that you will have it as well. And you know, Arjun articulated that very well earlier. It's not a given. So if we do all these things, we can significantly reduce your risk of getting a cancer.
And these are 2 good resources that you mentioned, like for the guidelines, the World Cancer Research Fund and American Institute of AICR, the cancer research, right? Like the American Institute of Cancer Research. So these, there are many cancer websites and organizations, but we find these 2 organizations are like the most researched and well-founded. What would you say about that?
I would agree with you. So this, you know, the latest guidelines from the World Cancer Research Fund, American Institute of Cancer Research is 2018. That's fabulous. And then the American Cancer Society have a really good report as well from 2020. So, you know, people can read that. Other resources which are so great are PCRM, have really good nutrition resources. They have a document specifically for nutrition. They go through all the risk factors. They give you some recipes. And also in Ontario, in Canada, there's a wonderful resource that I just found, which is on Gilda's Club Toronto. If your viewers Google that, and there's under the
what is it again, Zahra? What club?
Gilda's Club Toronto.
How do you spell it?
GILDA. That's Gilda. It's named after a lady who had breast cancer, and it's a not-for-profit for people with cancer, to support people with cancer. And they have
GILDEA. Yeah. Okay.
And under their resource section, they have a cancer nutrition guide. It's one of the best cancer nutrition guides I've seen, actually. So
wonderful. That seems to be a great resource.
And of course, I must mention my sister's website, Plant-Based Health Professionals UK. She has a lot of talks on there, courses and practices. So go check that out. Yeah.
Yes. Good. Yeah. For our viewers, you could see in the comments that Gilda's link to Gilda's Club Toronto. It's in the comments. Excellent.
Lovely.
Good. So this is a bit of a sad situation. Rhonda is sharing that her daughter at age 35 has the BRCA gene, had double mastectomy in 2017. Unfortunately, in 2018, it metastasized to her brain and has been battling it even now, 5 surgeries later. And we don't know where to turn. Any suggestions? First of all, Rhonda, we're so sorry to that you're going through this and your daughter is going through this. And Zahra, like, do you have any thoughts and
suggestions?
I totally echo Arjun and Shobha. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. It's heartbreaking. So, you know, lifestyle measures are there not only to improve outcomes, but to improve quality of life. We know that these measures can help cope with side effects of treatments, of the treatments that your daughter may be going through. It helps combat fatigue and anxiety and depression. So it's important, I feel, to use that as an adjunct for quality of life. Having a bit of physical activity, having the good restorative sleep, eating well, these are all good things to do. There's a wonderful book called Radical Remission. I'm sure Arjun and Shobha have heard of it, that is written by a woman called Kelly Turner. And she noticed that in the medical literature, there were about 1,000 cases of people who had very advanced disease and, not much hope, and they had to go through so many treatments. And she noted that these people had actually gone into what they call a spontaneous remission. And so she went all around the world, and she interviewed people who this had happened to, and she asked them what they were doing. And they were doing so many different things, but they were all doing 9 same things. And she wrote this beautiful book. It's full of hope. And each chapter is about one of those 9, each of those 9 things. And I really encourage you to read that.
What's the name of the book again, Zahra?
Radical Remission by Kelly Turner.
Yes,
by Kelly Turner.
Yeah. Also, one resource I would like to mention is this is from a fellow Newfoundlander. So there is a book by Florence Strang. She is a psychologist, and she is a survivor of breast cancer, and she shared her experience of how she changed her lifestyle, and it has helped her along with the conventional treatment to improve her outcome. And she co-authored that book with her friend Susan, who was also a cancer survivor. And the name of the book is 100 Perks of Having Cancer and 100 Health Tips for Surviving It. So check that out for our viewers. That's also a wonderful resource. And it's written in a humorous way with so many tips. It's sometimes when you have this cancer diagnosis, it's all like a heavy emotion and humor, laughter, and togetherness and the good company. All these things are so helpful.
Like sometimes even like when you are diagnosed, like most of the doctors, they tell about the diagnosis and they say, we cannot do much about it. So not many people get counseled on what are the things that they can do, what are the lifestyle measures. And as you mentioned, like when they make this lifestyle changes, it becomes easy. And even the treatment options, or like you just go in a better direction, like when you make these changes.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's important to, you already mentioned, but I want to stress this, the conventional treatment is for some cancers is chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. Like when people make these lifestyle changes, changing their diet, doing, maintaining regular activity, staying active, doing some stress, releasing activities, some yoga or meditation, along with the plant-based eating, these things will also make it easy for them to go through their chemotherapy and radiation treatments, right? Because chemotherapy and radiation, these have so many side effects. And when we load the system with this antioxidant-rich, phytochemical-rich foods, it just makes it easy to tolerate the chemotherapy. I tell my patients hey, you might go see the oncologist to get your chemotherapy, but your breakfast, your lunch, and your supper is your chemotherapy at home. So don't forget that chemotherapy.
That's right. Our food is our medicine at home, and it's absolutely our chemotherapy. Yeah.
So we have another question from Ellen. If sisters have had cancer of cervix, uterus, ovarian, does that make me high risk of developing it? What foods can I eat to prevent it? Is there a preventative for such cancers?
So there are criteria which might make you think that you might have a hereditary genetic predisposition to cancers. There's different syndromes. So I would, speak with your family doctor about that, because if you have a sibling with ovarian cancer, you may also be eligible for genetic testing. So do look into that and go and speak to your family physician. What to eat, we know what to eat, if that was the question. So lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans and other legumes, they should be the majority of your plate. We want some nuts and seeds and lots of herbs and spices on there. So these are the things we know to eat. I can talk about some really great additional specifics. I mean, we like to talk about the diet pattern, but there's also some great evidence suggesting that things like cruciferous vegetables have anti-cancer properties. So your broccoli, your cauliflower, cabbage, kale, mushrooms. There was a big overview recently looking at all the studies on mushrooms. I mean, who knew there were so many studies on mushrooms, showing that there is a significantly reduced risk of cancer for people who eat the most mushrooms. And flax, ground flax has anti-cancer properties. You want onions and garlic, the allium family. I said ground flax, I think already. You want the dark berries with all their antioxidants. Soy, we must talk about soy. Everybody should include, unless you have a soy allergy, which is not very common, you should include soy in your diet on a daily basis. Your minimally processed soy products, so your edamame, tofu, tempeh, miso, soy milk, because eating that reduces your risk of getting breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. If you have a diagnosis already of breast cancer, it reduces your risk of getting breast cancer recurrence and dying of breast cancer. And that's a huge thing to say, because it's such a persistent myth that soy products cause cancer. Green tea, anti-cancer properties there as well. So, just eat the colors of the rainbow, eat lots of fruits and vegetables. Definitely avoid, limit your red meat, processed meat, raw meat. Dairy we can talk about. Dairy has mixed data. The cancer guidelines don't come down very specifically on dairy because it is mixed. But we do note that the strongest data for dairy is it's linked to prostate cancer. There's a number of studies, meta-analyses linking it to prostate cancer. In breast cancers, which is, so the second one probably is endometrial cancer, the strongest link. And then breast cancer is quite mixed as well. But, excuse me, but I do tell my patients that, I let them know that this is not specifically in the guidelines, but dairy has in it estrogens, and you take dairy, we measure your estrogen levels will go up. So for my patients with breast cancer, especially the estrogen driven ones, I say that you don't want that. You have dairy, you increase your insulin-like growth factor, which we've talked about being a factor that causes proliferation and cell growth. It has casein in it, the protein that has been shown in laboratory studies to promote cancer growth. It has saturated fat. We know that we don't want saturated fat. And we know that there are studies in breast cancer showing that it can increase the risk of breast cancer in a dose response. And that to me is so important, because, that's how we figured out that smoking was bad for us. It was that, the association in the big studies, but with that dose response as well. And, one study last year, the Adventist Health Study, you will know this, that it had about, I think about 50,000 people, and they followed people and they looked at their dairy intake. You have half a glass of dairy a day, your risk of breast cancer goes up by 30%. You have 3 glasses a day, it goes up by 80%. You switch it to soy milk, you reduce your risk by 30%. So I do say to my patients, just think about this, because let's use the precautionary principle. You already have a diagnosis of breast cancer. Think about switching it to soy milk, get all the benefits of the soy, and ditch the dairy, because we really don't need dairy. There's no reason to have dairy. There's better choices to make. It's not on our food guide anymore, in terms of it's not an essential food group, food nutrient, whatever we want to call it. So whole food, plant-based, just eat plants.
Yes.
Yes.
just eat plants.
And like, I just want to, that's a beautiful summary, for the prevention of this cervix, uterus, ovarian cancers. I want to second some of the things that you've already said. There is a connection with dairy and meat, and there are many mechanisms how intake of dairy products and the meats and the processed foods, even the processed plant foods, these increase the risk of getting cancers. So there are foods that, irrespective of whether there is genetic basis or not. Like it's important, as Dr. Kassam said, if your sisters had it, get it checked, talk to your family doctor and get the genetic test to see if you have a high propensity. Despite whether you have that or not, we suggest like adopt these changes. And the more you adopt these changes, the better. Like, and one thing along with this food thing is the alcohol, right?
Yes.
Like alcohol is, culture, like it's so,
it's normalized.
It's normalized, like, taking alcohol. Like, yeah, if you're taking alcohol on a special occasion, like a wine, maybe once or twice a year, that's different. But thinking alcohol is it's okay. And research is showing that intake of alcohol is increasing the risk of breast cancer, colon cancer, and many other cancers, right? So also limiting the intake of wine is important. And it's so important that you touch the topic on soy, because there is so much confusion on soy. Like, because internet is full of misinformation about soy, right? So, soy causes breast cancer. No, soy has hormones. These are phyto hormones, the plant-derived hormones, and these are beneficial, right? So the minimally processed soy, like edamame or tofu, these are good, but at the same time, you want to avoid the highly processed soy, like the ones that have soy protein isolate, like fake meat burgers. Like if you look at the ingredients and it says soy protein isolate, even though you see the soy, it's a protein isolate and it is acting similar to the animal protein. That's one caveat about the soy. Megan is asking, is it really important to watch the intake of added sugar to prevent cancer?
Yes, and when we're saying added sugar, we're not talking about fruit, because fruit is obviously really good for you. We're talking about the free sugar we don't want. So we don't want the sugary beverages or the processed food that has all the sugar, because they contribute to obesity, they contribute to insulin resistance, they contribute to heart disease, diabetes, all the other things that then increase your risk of cancer too. So absolutely, we don't want these free sugars from processed food mainly, but we're fine with the packaged in a fruit sugars that are so good for us.
Yeah, that is so well, like it's so important to clarify that. Like people put sugars in one box. Oh, fruit, and there are people like who are afraid to eat fruit.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's not even a single study that shows that fruit increases the risk of, not even a single study, fruit increases the risk of diabetes, fruit increases the risk of heart disease. Like there is not even a single study to show cancer. But on the contrary, eating fruit, like, it is showing to decrease the risk of all chronic diseases and cancer. So processed added sugars, absolutely. And we at Gift of Health, in our Gift of Health, the 6-week online program, we teach our students, the 6-week course participants. These people have chronic diseases, have weight to lose, and like want to get off the medication. So we actually show them how to transition, make this like changes. Like sometimes it's easy to talk about these things, but changing our habits is not so easy, right? So and so we now hold their hand and walk them along the steps. And one of the things that we teach and share is limit the added sugars. That includes like honey, maple syrup, or agave syrup, or brown sugar, or any sugar. And we suggest to keep it under 3 to 4 teaspoons per day, not tablespoons, 3 to 4 teaspoons. Like that means, hey, if having that spoon of sugar makes your oatmeal go down, that's good.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So that's the thing. Then Natalie is bringing up a very, very good point and a question. Like this is a
yeah. So Natalie says, I feel, and this is my opinion, that socioeconomic affect majority our diet. Also, how do the Canadian Food Guide play a role in plant-based diet? We as a province spend major money in treating chronic illness, but very little is done in prevention. In order for people to eat healthy, the cost goes up. What can people do?
Very well said. Absolutely. So there's so many things to say within that. So socioeconomic factors play a huge role in our health, right? We know, and we have to address them, and it's hard at a societal level. We have to make food accessible, healthy food accessible. We know that if the lower your income, the higher percentage you are spending on food. That's just, adding. And, people who live in food deserts, for example, it's not going to be easy to get the healthy food that they need. If you're working 2-3 jobs, it's going to be hard to do that. It's much easier to go to the local fast food place and get food. And we're doing a terrible job at creating healthy environments where people can make the right choice by default because it's there for them. We have to do better. The Canada Food Guide this time, the latest iteration is really good. I think it's the best food guide of all the country guidelines. The problem, and that plate is half the plate is fruits and vegetables, a quarter is whole grains, a quarter is protein, and that it specifically states that you should choose your proteins, emphasize your plant proteins and de-emphasize your animal products. And they say, at least half of that should be from plant protein. So that means that at least 87.5% of the Canada Food Guide current plate is plants. So it definitely promotes a plant-based diet. It's removed the dairy, as we've said, as an essential food group. And this iteration of the food guide has really been able to be evidence-based because the people doing it this time did not allow the meat and dairy industry to come in and lobby for what should be on our food guide, like it is in the US. Dairy is very strongly in the US guidelines. So the problem is, though, that we are not operating, I can't even say the word, we are not putting in place the Canada Food Guide. We're not teaching it properly in schools. This is the guide that should be in schools, in hospitals, in workplaces. This is the whole point of the guide. Where is it? Where is it? Why are my children not being taught about the Canada Food Guide? Why is my hospital selling, having hamburger treats for lunch for the cancer centre staff? Why are there processed meats in one of the only 2 places where the staff are going to buy their food? Why are our patients being given food that is not healthful, even when they're sitting there with a diagnosis that has been caused by these things? So we have a lot of work to do. Yeah. And we need to put more money in prevention. And we're not. We have very little money in prevention. And we talk about, screening. And screening, of course, I'm for screening, but that's picking up things early once they've developed. We want to prevent them. So, I don't know all the answers. It's going to take a lot of effort, but hopefully some of us are mobilizing. And if we can have a voice, we can start advocating better.
Thanks for that, Zahra. I want to share my perspective on this. Natalie, yes, there is so much work that needs to be done at a provincial level, at a system level. It will be done. Don't get discouraged. It took about 50-60 years from the time we knew that the smoking was bad for it to become everyone, for the policies to come and policies to come to ban smoking from the public places and all. So just like what happened with smoking, there will be a time, I don't know whether it will happen in our lifetime. There will be a time, just like now, if people have to smoke, they have to go away from the building or the premises, and they have to be at a 50 feet distance away from the building to smoke from the hospital, right? So I think it's going to happen in maybe in this in our generation or the next generation, that if people want to have their bacon or their chicken or their fried wings or the processed meats, they may have to go outside the hospital to have their hamburgers and all. But it's going to happen. So don't get discouraged by what is happening in the system. But the one question that you had is what people can do. What can people do? It's actually much easier than you think, Natalie. The thing is, healthy eating doesn't have to be expensive. What we are suggesting is that you load up on potatoes, sweet potatoes, oats, brown rice, beans, like whole grains. These are all cheap, right? You don't waste so much money on these whole grains, beans, and like starches, corn. And so fruits and vegetables, you could buy them fresh or you can buy them frozen. Like if frozen vegetables and fruits, these are as good as the fresh ones. So you can save a lot of money there, and you can buy the things, whatever is in the season. So you save money that way. And when you're eating plant-based, especially avoiding the processed plant-based, you're not buying oils, you're not buying meats, you're not buying these dairy products. So like with that, you are saving like, just 1 second, just answer someone. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're not buying this $5 per pound, like meats, $10 per pound, like pork chops and steaks, you're saving money there. You're not buying this cheese and butter. It's the dairy products are expensive. The meats are expensive. The oils are expensive. So you save the money from there, and you divert some of that money to that fruits and vegetables. And when you eat this way, your frizz looks so healthy and beautiful, and your body will love it. And also, you won't have to invest so much on buying medicines. So you have so many savings in terms of your, the need for medicines. And think of the energy and time that is lost when you're not following this. Like even when you get sick, like I had one experience with a young a manager, like a construction manager. Like he was in his 30s, and his diet and lifestyle was not so good. And he used to get like, on the weekends, eating Western food, burgers and pizzas and fries, and drinking almost like on the weekends. And every 2 to 3 weeks, he used to get stomach upset. And when he used to get stomach upset, he used to lose work for like 2 or 3 days. And under his direction, there were about 25 people working under him. So he was losing so much revenue. And he would say, "Doc, every time I'm getting this stomach upset, like I'm losing almost like 15 to 20 grand." So it's, not everyone may be losing that much, but when we are sick, you lose time away from your work. All your family members lose your time away from work. So think of this as an investment. Like even if we have to spend a little bit more, like I honor and respect everyone's, like not everyone has the same financial capacity, but if you follow these simple tips, you will make this easy. And there are actually resources, like if you go to Plant-Based on a Budget, like you can type that in Google. There is a book, and I'm blanking on the name of the author, but Eat Vegan for $4 a day. So you could make like a lot of plant-based meals for you and your family within less than $4. That is in US, but in Canada, I would say we looked at that, and you could probably make that, maybe less than $7 to $8 a day, which is still really, good. So there are resources. It's the mindset. First thing is,
and I would say, like, instead of putting the focus on, okay, what the province is doing or the government is doing, the hospital is doing, it's better to focus on us, what we can do. Like if we can eat healthy, that's the best gift we can give it to ourselves and to our family members. So we can start there rather than putting our focus on what we cannot do and lose all that energy.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And individual change is so important. When you change, you have a ripple effect, and nothing can happen at a higher level if individual change is not there. So everything is important, from our individual change to advocating at higher levels. But Arjun, Shobha, you do that. You're empowering people from the ground up to make the changes. You're not telling people to wait for the changes that might take decades to come. You're telling them now, and that's what we hope we're doing at Plant-Based Canada as well, educating the public. So and that's where change often comes from, isn't it? From our people.
This is one last question, Zahra. Like it's Avatar asking, anyone with diagnosed with endometrial cancer, should their ovaries be removed or preserved?
So endometrial cancer is cancer of the lining of the womb. So I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure. It's not my area.
It's also case-to-case basis as well, like case-to-case basis, and it's better to discuss it with like a gynecologist or a specialist a surgeon who is like focused on treating these endometrial and ovarian cancers. I actually don't know the answer to that. Like your area of expertise is gastrointestinal malignancies, and my area of work is mostly gastrointestinal malignancies. So this is something that we cannot say for sure.
It's a very specialized area, and we know that gynecological cancers are treated in very specialist centers. That I don't treat them in our center, and it also will totally depend, as Arjun said, on the individual stage and circumstances.
Yeah. So Daphne is saying that I'm hoping to see in my lifetime folks having to go outside to eat the unhealthy food, just as they do now with smoking. It's going to happen, Daphne, because collectively, if we realize that it's what's on a plate is what's killing us and our major and causing disability in our loved ones and friends, like we have to change the food environment. Because no matter how much we talk, unless we change what is available, what's on our dinner plates, it's going to be a tough task. Natalie saying that she's learning so much from the meetings, and yeah, and they loved their beautiful comments about all the wonderful expertise and resources you have shared, Zahra. We'll and yes, there is in the link that we just shared a link to Plantbased Canada. That is a not-for-profit organization. Dr. Kassam and her sister, they have, like Dr. Zahra, she's spearheading this organization, and this is a not-for-profit organization. We click on the link and subscribe, like the page, and support this very timely work. There's a lot of good work being done on nutrition and education. And also check out
with Michelle. With Michelle, so I do everything with Michelle. It's not
Michelle,
just
yeah, Michelle is a great resource. Like Michelle Fidel, she's a dietitian, a registered dietitian, and she specializes in helping people with cancer to eat better. So
so do check out this resource, and we are so glad that we were able to talk to Zahra today, and it was such a useful, like all our viewers are thanking you for such insights and beautiful conversations. So we are so lucky to have you. So thank you for making the time to come here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Such a privilege to be with you today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just want to share with the viewers, like this is such an important resource, like what we shared and talked in this last hour. Please share this video to your friends and family members, anyone that getting a diagnosis of cancer. We feel like these things can give them a hope and information to uplift themselves, like when they're going through their treatment. So please share, bookmark this and share this out widely. Once this session is over, we'll be uploading this video to our Gift of Health YouTube channel. So check that out, and please like and so share from there as well, the Gift of Health YouTube channel.
So if you want to share this interesting conversation with your friends, family members, so you can also get this link from Gift of Health YouTube. And as we said, like every week we bring interesting guests and experts so that like we can better our health. So, and also like we do want to mention, like tomorrow, as we said, it's so difficult to change our habits, and like tomorrow, like we are speaking, and we are so excited.
We are along with the PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 10:30 Newfoundland time, tomorrow morning. And the links to that conversation, the talk is on the Gift of Health page. That's about fighting diabetes with food. So it's this is the last class of the 8 classes that happened, and tomorrow's discussion is going to be how to change your habits and how to make the transition, the plant-based transition, easy as possible.
Yeah. So if you have not signed up for this class series, because this class series is free, so don't worry if you have not signed up. Make sure you sign up by today, because tomorrow is the last class. And
yeah,
even
let's
if
have the link to the
yes,
to that.
so when you sign
comments,
up,
yeah.
you get the previous class recordings as well. So it's, which is a wealth of information. So that's why make sure, like, even if you don't have time to listen it to now, you can listen it to later once you register. So make sure you utilize this wonderful resource.
So yeah. Michelle is saying thanks for a great live. Michelle has been with us all along. And then Robert is saying very important information, Robert Peddle. Lovely, yeah. Zahra, once again, thank you so much from the bottom of our heart for being with us. And thanks for everyone for joining us and sharing your time and asking questions and keeping it engaged and interactive.
Thank you.
So